Hey friends, when was the last time you cried in public? How did that feel? Some of you watching may be college students, and a lot of you probably aren't, either older or younger or not in college, but I'm hoping this video will resonate with you anyways. Over the course of my time at Syracuse University, living on campus, I've noted that a lot of people seem to know the different places that they've cried on campus. So I noticed that, like, in passing, I'll be just walking with someone and they'll point out, like, I cried there once, and it's just like a random bench or a place on the sidewalk or a building that they go to often. And the funny thing about that is that a lot of people seem to remember the places where they've cried, but it's very rare for me to see somebody crying while I'm going about my daily business. Even though I know it happens, I don't seem to see it. And I get the sense that a lot of people don't actually notice people crying on campus at all, really. So what ends up happening is when I'm the one who needs to cry, if I'm having a bad day, if something bad happens and I need to let it out, I feel like the only one who's feeling that way in a sea of people who are doing fine, that I'm the one that is out of place and weird for needing to cry, even though I know it happens all the time in all places on campus. So all this got me wondering, where do people cry on campus, and why is it so hard to notice when we know it happens? To explore this, I started an interactive map to try and visualize the crying that goes on campus. I texted a bunch of people in my contacts and asked them just to send me a list of places that they could remember, and I just dropped a pin on the map for every time someone cried. At the moment that I'm making this video, there are 289 pins on the map and less than 50 respondents. I want to share a few conversations with people who contributed pins to the map. They graciously shared some of their perspectives and observations about crying and mental health on campus, and hearing them really helped me contextualize the data that we've gotten so far and just sort of understand this phenomenon a bit better, getting a few different points of view.
Okay, so as you know, I did like a map of a bunch of places where people have cried on campus. Did I send you the map by any chance?
You did not. No.
Okay.
I think it would be interesting for me to see it, just to see like the demographic and see like which places on campus are like the most common,
Okay, here, I'll share the screen with you. So we zoom all the way in on
on
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
So we got some on South Campus, a ton on Main Campus.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
and then, so my data was a bit skewed towards music students just because it got circulated in a cappella a bit. So lots in Kraus, lots in Hendrix, a ton
It's
in Bird. That's like the number
yeah.
at this point.
That seems like a lot of people in Bird, because that's like the place where the most stress comes to like ahead, because everybody's studying, everybody's doing work, and everybody kind of crams.
Exactly. Do you ever see people crying on campus when you're out and about?
I don't, and I know in my own personal experience, when I feel like I'm about to cry, I'll definitely I try to go somewhere private, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are kind of like that as well, just trying to be alone with whatever thoughts are making you cry.
I'd say like barely ever do I see anyone cry on campus. I feel like I cry more publicly on campus than a lot of other people. And I feel like a lot of people who are crying on campus are doing it like privately in like bathrooms and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Or like in their own little corners, not really like in like public parts of campus.
One of the main things is that people have cried, but you never see people openly like wanting to cry, like in front of people. Like it's always like if you accidentally walk into like a room and somebody's crying, like they like clear up their face and they like try to act like they weren't crying.
So you contributed to the crime app, and you had your locations. Like, are you more discreet about it when it comes to your own crying, or are you okay with people seeing that, or
That
what's
I
your
mean,
take?
that honestly depended on the year that I was in like school. Because like come junior and senior year, when like I had started to like go through like my rough patch, like I was starting to become, and like starting to like get a grasp of myself, like through like therapy and through just like through like self-searching and stuff like that. I was starting to become more open with people like seeing the effect that crying can have on like me and like other people.
Personally, I like to cry like with other people, which I don't know is like a popular opinion, but I know like a lot of the crying I've done, I'll tell you straight up, is like with Main Squeeze, because like I'll be like so happy, or like I'll have a terrible day and I'll go to Main Squeeze and like vent all my problems to them, and like it's nice to cry with people to hug me while I'm crying versus crying alone in the bathroom while like someone's doing their business next to me.
I don't know, like, do you have any other thoughts on the subject, like how just the general population of SU tends to think about like mental health and sort of dealing with these kinds of things? Like, do you think we talk about it enough or too much?
Absolutely not. I think mental health in general is, and I don't know if this is an SU problem or just a general problem. It's more likely just a problem with society at large. But I feel like we are made to feel like that's a very individual problem that you need to deal with yourself. It's like a burden to try to like figure that out in a communal sense, and then have like, because on the flip side of that, you don't want to be like using your friends as therapy all the time, because that can have its own emotional weight to it. It's hard to put into words. Like there's that paradox of like, I want someone to like help me, but I don't want to feel helpless. I don't want to be in that place where like I am putting my trust in someone else to make me feel better. And that like spirals in on itself, and you know, the already isolating feeling of being sad is compounded with the isolating feeling of not wanting to share that sadness with anyone else.
I think like our generation does a pretty good job of like keeping mental health a part of the conversation in college, especially because we go to a very like liberal college. Like compared to my high school, like there was nothing. So to me, it's like 100% better than what it was, but it's not really great. And I think I find a lot of my mental health resources from like being around people who also like understand what I'm going through. Like me and all of my friends go to therapy, and like Syracuse University didn't open that door for me, and the Barnes Center has done nothing but discourage me from going to therapy because they're so hard to work with. But like I know that like me and all my friends have like our shit that we deal with, but like we're there for each other, but we don't like unhealthily rely on each other either, which I think is a really nice boundary that we have set.
Like it's one of those things where you can't just individually, you know, it's not just going to be a question of let's all just be okay crying, because there's structural things in place and there's societal things in place that make that more difficult than it needs to be. But I definitely think it can start there, and more structural changes can be rooted in people beginning to open up about that, and in their own lives, like being more open about that.
It's such an interesting thing, and part of the point of this map is like I want people to like share it around and stuff. So like if you're ever crying in Bird, you can look and see like, oh, okay, 7 people have cried in this same bathroom. Like I don't know. I feel like
yeah, I think it's a healthy map, because I think it puts a lot of like people's emotions into perspective and allows them to be like, to understand that people have cried here before and people have gotten through these tears. Like, because one of the worst things about it is like, one of the worst things about like the act of crying is just that you feel so unbelievably vulnerable while you're doing it. Like you feel like you're so exposed to the world while you're doing it. So that's why you want to be alone. That's why you want to be isolated. So yeah. So just like allowing people to like feel like some like security in that like vulnerability, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I hope it has that effect. I don't know. So some people have looked at this map and been like, oh yeah, like show me the map when you're done. I think it'll be very funny. Like,
I mean, no doubt it's funny, because you realize shit, people cry everywhere on campus. Like it's kind of jarring because you don't think about it. People don't want to think about how often they cry usually. But when you see it, you're just like, wow, it's like both like humbling, like internally, but like like externally you're just like, wow, this is so absurd. Like so many people cry, so many people have cried in these places. Wow.
Yeah,
That's like,
definitely.
jeez.
Yeah,
So it is funny in a way. So I don't blame people for laughing at it if they can get some humor out of it.
for sure.
So, what I took away from this is that we don't see people crying often because we go and seek privacy. Whether that's a personal choice to feel more comfortable or social pressure to not burden other people, we tend to isolate ourselves because crying is such a personal experience and everybody handles it differently. What is clear to me, though, is that if we had a large enough sample size that was representative of the whole student body, the hotspots on the map would be concentrated in areas where there's the most student traffic, whether that's the school with the most students, or the library that's the most popular, or the biggest dorm building. We would see hotspots wherever there are the most people. Everyone cries. And to all the Syracuse University students watching, I hope that this map can make you feel a little less alone the next time you're crying on campus. Remember that no matter how alone you feel, you're in good company.